Very good morning to one and all. Now I would like to introduce Dr. Raghavendra Kune garu, who is called as Dr. Raghav. He is scientist SG, Head High Performance Computing and Drones, SPCDS at Advanced Data Processing Research Institute, Indian Space Research Organization, Department of Space, located in Hyderabad. He is associated with High Performance Computing and Smart Sensing Division of ADRIN and holds a total of 20 years of experience with ISRO. His major areas include HPC algorithms, development for satellite payloads, and UAV systems using GPU, cloud, distributed computing infrastructures, IoT-based navigation smart sensing systems, development using indigenous navigation systems like Gagan and IRNSS, which is NAVIC, machine and deep learning systems development for image, video analytics, and speech recognition to run on cloud and edge computing devices, etc. He holds publications in national, international conferences and journals in the area of HPC, cloud, and big data technologies and secure communication systems developments in specific computing. Dr. Raghav delivered lectures in conferences, universities, and colleges on the topics of emerging trends of computing and programming methodologies. Dr. Raghav received PhD in computer science from University of Hyderabad in the area of cloud and big data for scientific computing platforms in Earth observation systems. He is a member of Board of Studies and guest adjunct faculty for engineering institutions in Department of Computer Science and Information Technology. He has guided several BTech and MTech student projects and guiding PhD students at Indian Institute of Space Science and Technology, Trivandrum, for research on quantum computing for cryptography and big data analytics for satellite systems. He is a member of several bodies like ASI, Astronomical Society of India, Computer Society of India, associate member of Andhra Pradesh Academy of Sciences, member of Indian Cartography Association. He has received awards for his contributions in the space technologies, which includes Team Member Award for the development of Digital Intelligent Image Production and Management System, and the recipient of ISRO Young Scientist Award for his contributions in the computing technologies for Earth observation and remote sensing data exploitations. With this brief introduction, I would like to, I request Dr. Raghavendra Kune sir to address the gathering and continue with the sessions.
Thank you. Good morning, all. It's my privilege to be here to introduce to the gathering, and I thank Shobha Bindu Madam for calling me for this presentation as an introductory talk on the blockchain technologies. Okay, so let me just put it across. The blockchain has been done and is being applied in many of the science and kind of technology and different areas. So I thought to introduce and give a small brief introduction and also see how this technology is leaping forward for many of the areas where it is being applied. So not only in the kinds of the cryptography areas, but is also taking a leap in many of these consumer applications and business applications where the decentralization has to happen. Okay, so that was the thing. So yeah, down the line, maybe the couple of days, what we're going to study, I was in the schedule where you have a different technologies of the blockchain being introduced, and there is a in detailed technologies being also made available to you as the different kinds of speakers are going to talk on the technology. But now today, what I'll be doing is I'll be focusing on only the introduction part, not to get into the deep and not to get into the any kind of research areas as of my presentation talks about. Mostly like give some kind of an introduction, those who are very novice users to the blockchain technology, so they can get benefited what exactly is this and how other lectures when you are when they are delivered, how you can able to correlate with them and online and in line with these kind of talks. And also like in my presentation also, mostly like I'll be talking more and presenting some more things less. So I'll also be introducing about some of these, the blockchain, how it is being provided as a services or a cloud technology. Okay, so coming to the, like, if one would like to have your own kind of a blockchain technology using as a thing, and if you want to develop an application using a cloud-based technologies and want to bring it to the market and put up how you can do that. So that's what I'm trying to put up as a giving an introduction and giving some of the case study for you to understand and go ahead. Okay, so let me just share my screen. Yeah, I hope my screen is visible to everybody.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Yeah, so let's go ahead with the topic now. So another 1 hour of time, I'll be introducing about the blockchain. So most of the people has a blockchain means they think like it's a Bitcoin, right? So Bitcoin is different and the blockchain is different. But Bitcoin is, we can say, like one of the implementations of a blockchain. So blockchain need to be seen like a technology, and Bitcoin need to be seen like the one of the applications of the blockchain. Okay, that's what we need to remember. One thing. And like the Bitcoin is one of the applications. So there are so many applications which are built over a blockchain technology, and now the way the transformations are been happening in the blockchain is going to definitely create a different types of a leap in the coming next generation kind of a technologies. Okay, so my agenda will be goes like this. I'll be talking about the evolution, like any technology which need to be understood and seen forward. We always has to see that evolution, how it is happened, and how the things are moved forward, and where we are, and what are the other things need to be taken care of further. And I'll be talking about the evolution, then followed by the cryptocurrencies and Bitcoin, which is most of the times we think like a Bitcoin itself is like a blockchain, right? So it's not the same. It's both are it's like no, they have a small difference. So then there is another the technologies of the blockchain, the implementers, which is a hyperledger, and there is a framework, and there is another framework which is called Ethereum. So this also goes as another framework for development of the technologies behind the using the blockchain as a underlying technology. And there are so many public clouds providers who are in fact trying to provide these kind of a services, blockchain services over a network. So one, if he's interested, if you want to develop your own applications, you can directly register them and set up your own network, and try to see that and how you can make use of these technologies for development of your own applications using the blockchain technology and bring it into the market. This is what even that most of the startups have been doing to bring this technology into existence. And as there are so many applications of the blockchain which has been dealt up. So this is one of the blockchain applications which is also being done in the geospatial applications, so which we're also trying to put up for the geospatial applications, how the data which is collected from different sensors, this could be the satellite sensor, it could be the IoT kind of a sensors, or any of the sensors which has this kind of a geospatial information, and how it can be made as a blockchain based technology, so that it cannot be immutable and it cannot be reversible, and no tampering can happen, and how these different communities of the people will get benefited out of these blockchain based geospatial applications. And I'll be concluding my things, not to put it into too much of technical details. So I'll be trying to spend some time and give overview and try to see that how these technologies been growing using these clouds as a backend computing technologies for using the blockchain as a the main part of it. Okay, so coming to this, if you see the blockchain, in fact, it is not it's not very new for someone to understand. So in fact, it is there since maybe 10 years down the line. So when we see this Gartner hype cycle itself, so what the Gartner hype cycle talks about is, it says that this is the illusion curve. This also called as as the time progresses, how the each technology progress. Then after that, where it is on the peak. So when it reaches peak, so there are some technologies which get removed from this kind of the area itself. So they become like a more like illusion. So if the technology is no more illusion, then it becomes like more like a production. Then it comes to the plateau of production. Then it comes into the market for usage, right? So this is called illusion curve. So most of the high things may come, may not come into the market. Okay. So may come, may not come into the world. So like if you see in the 2017, there is already if you see about the kind of blockchain technology, what we see here, there is a cognitive computing and blockchain, right? So before 2017 itself, the blockchain was there as a peak. Then slowly it started as the illusion went. That means whenever there is illusion has been gone, now there's no more illusion. Now slowly it's coming into the production. Now it's getting, most of the applications are getting realized using this blockchain technology, right? So it's not very new, in fact, but it has given a blockchain has given a new the era when somebody started hearing about something called the Bitcoin, right? So we should actually say that the blockchain is the technology which is behind the Bitcoin, which has given even the more focus to everybody to concentrate on work on the blockchain kind of technologies, right? So when you see about the blockchain again, still 2018 also still it is there. It's now started coming into the plateau production, and many applications are getting developed. And recently we see that there are so many smart contracts which people are talking about is already getting developed on using this blockchain kind of a technologies. Now in the 2019 is already the blockchain in the government and blockchain in education, blockchain in renewable energy, blockchain in insurance and smart contract. If you see 2019, it was full of blockchain technologies, right? So people are now, if you see the blockchain, it's already started coming into the production. Now once it goes into that, it comes to the slope of enlightenment, right? So the idea here is that those who are the technology, though it looks like very the simple idea, in fact, but the implementation is complex to implement and do that. But the idea is very simple, which is based on the cryptography mechanisms and uses some kind of the hashing functions, which in the digital form to do that. The idea is very simple, but the system is complex, and also the beauty of the system is such that nobody can tamper it, and it's not immutable. No, it's immutable kind of a thing. That's where the blockchain makes much stronger for someone to implement any solutions which cannot be tampered, right? So most of the things now, if you see in the 2019, everywhere there's a blockchain technology being applied. Like every application, if you take, there's a blockchain behind it, right? So blockchain in IoT, blockchain based the payment systems, blockchain, people also think about a 3D printing, which is a mechanism which is used for three-dimensional kind of a printing, where the different types of equipments can be printed, design can be printed, which also coming like a small industries are also getting developed for printing many kind of things, and the kind of a digital cryptocurrency, very places, like you can just name one thing where there is a place for a blockchain, right? That's where the blockchain is being the leaping forward. And I also see this blockchain technology as a subject is also being introduced in many of the academic institutions, so that the students will get benefited and they get tuned to this kind of a technology for the different types of application development, especially in the academic and the industry, right? So that's where it has been done. This is in fact as of July 2019, and 2020 was also introduced, and there is a still if you can see like the blockchain is coming to that, but because of this COVID and other things, so the most of the things has not been done up here, right? So mostly people are trying to see something on related to the quarantine kind of things, right? So that's how it comes up. Fine. So, but nevertheless, once we see this blockchain, especially like as the name indicates, it's basically a chain of blocks, right? So that's where it talks about. So a blockchain, as we see, it's allows untrusting parties with common interest. So that means when you talk about any kind of a, especially the networks, when you talk about, or maybe the internet, when you talk about, the internet talks about something like the connected systems which are all being worldwide connected through a network, right? So they can do the internet, they can use internet as a backbone for doing so many kind of transactions or exchanging information, for information management, and also for sharing the contents, like different types of things is being internet being used. And if you see, the internet has in fact created a revolution in the world, right? So it is basically made so much of revolution, so that this digital content can be transformed and can be transmitted over a network using this internet as a backbone kind of things, right? So but what is the problem which we comes is, the one thing which everybody has to understand is like a trust, right? How many people can trust the internet? If I want to store some information, either maybe if I'm transmitting some information to other party, how do I trust the party, right? So like there could be some people, they used to ask, like, even if I want to store some data, and how do I trust that my data is not being tampered, or it's been tampered proof or not seen by anybody else, or is not going to be disturbed by anybody else, right? This kind of a questions used to come, especially in the case of a distributed computing, or even in the case of a grid, or maybe in the case of a cloud computing kind of a technologies. People used to always ask us, saying that, how do I trust, right? So that's always trust is the major factor here, right? So now, when you want to also look into this kind of a trust, also comes like the another way of looking the trust is something like let's say a centralized system, where the centralized system is also like a part of an internet, where the people are trying to put or do some kind of investment on that, and they're going to trust that party. Like for example, if we talk about some kind of the investment banker, or maybe a bank, when you talk about, so we are trusting actually the bank and putting some of our money to that, right? So but we are, government has given some kind of confidence or authorization, saying that okay, these banks are trusted banks where you can keep your money. Fine, that's what it looks like. So now, how do you trust? But how much you can do the trust on that? How do you trust that they're not doing any fraud? Like even if you see so many banks, earlier days it used to happen that the banks used to go for bankruptcy, right? So then what is going to happen? The money is being invested on this, right? So it's like how much you can trust. So the anybody like trusting how much you can do, that makes a big problem in the case of using this internet as a backbone, right? So now, if you want to do any kind of a transaction between the parties, maybe like one to another party, how do you trust the party? That becomes like a biggest challenge when you talk about the digital kind of a transactions, or maybe the internet kind of a things, right? So when you see this internet as such, so internet is basically can be divided into as a multiple categories, but I basically use internet to treat like a two parts here for the discussion point of view. One is called like a centralized computing, other one is called as a P2P computing. Peer-to-peer or P2P. So in the case of a centralized computing, you have a centralized server where all the computations happens on the centralized server, and all these computations which has to come from different parties will come to the centralized server, and this centralized server is trusted such that everybody is also going to trust this, and the computations are performed and the transactions has been performed. That way of calling like centralized computing, where everybody is going to trust. Now let's come to the another way of computing, where I'm talking about it. Distributed computing. Again, in the distributed computing, I'm talking about something called that is peer-to-peer computing, or P2P or peer-to-peer computing. So peer-to-peer computing is something where everybody in the part becomes like everybody in the thing becomes like their own part of computing, right? Everybody has trust to other, or everybody may be trusting, may not be trusting, but everybody becomes like a node within the computing. That becomes like a P2P computing, right? So in the case of a P2P computing, and if you want to, how do you trust the party? Right? In the case of a centralized bank, when you talk about their centralized authority and someone is identified for this to take care of it, so then you can be able to trust that centralized party and say that okay, this is the so-and-so person. But when you come to this kind of the uncentralized or decentralized, I call in the case of a decentralized kind of a computing. So how do we actually trust the party? That's where the question comes, right? So when you talk about the entire blockchain technology which is built is basically a P2P computing. That means there is no centralized party. Like when there are cases where people used to trust the centralized, and let's say that from the centralized kind of a thing, you would like to move to the decentralized kind of a thing, right? So then how it's going to move that? Like for example, I just give a small, some of the literature when we try to see, especially when it is linked with some kind of a money or maybe the monetary kind of a thing. I just put a small example for this. Let's say when the internet has created, and actually people thought that internet is going to give is remove the kind of the monopoly kind of a thing to the people, right? That's where it came up, like creating an internet. But when you see internet, in fact, instead of removing the monopoly or maybe removing a centralized kind of authority, it actually made many people to come into the centralized authority and monopoly. Like for example, if you see about most of the major players nowadays in the market, like if you talk about the Amazon, or you may talk about the Google, or you may talk about the Microsoft, or if you talk about any Uber or maybe the Facebook, anything, if you see, most of these people are becoming like a big players in the internet. I don't know how many of you agree with me. Like if you talk about the maintaining a data records or maintaining our own information, everything, Google has doing a lot of takes data from us and become like a centralized repository where they take our data and try to take out of this data, and our data becomes like their own business kind of a model for someone to do that, right? That means these players have become like a major players now. Wherever you see, even if you talk about any player in the internet now, you can name few of them maybe with the fingers, so you can count it until these are the major players also, like a Facebook or maybe the WhatsApp or maybe the No, these are the major places we're going to do, right? So when you talk about these things, and also like talk about something like another interesting story which you talk about something called as a let's say a transportation system which is like a Uber or Ola, right? So what they do is they actually have the centralized system which they created, and they try to get the people. They try to get the commuters and also the transport people, and they make like a centralized system, and you need to book them, and they will no, they will give you a vehicle, or maybe they allot you a vehicle from that you can transport. And where is the centralized system again? That Uber or Ola is going to be a centralized system, right? There's no decentralization. That means you have a centralized system, and people are trying to talk to a centralized system. And this centralized system, in the case of a transaction which is being happening, then if you're paying some kind of 100 rupees to the people, and directly it's not 100 rupees which is going from the actually the person who is traveling and the person who is actually owning the car, but it's not exactly the 100 rupees what you're going to do, because there is a centralized system, and that amount which transfers goes where digital transaction 100 rupees is exactly doesn't go the 100 rupees which is to the the traveler who is actually traveler to the guy who is actually running the transport, but there is some kind of amount which is being deducted, which has been transacted, and that amount will be given to a centralized party. This is how these become like more like a centralized kind of a things, right? Understood? So in the case of the centralized system, there is a flaw. Not only the flaw, there are some kind of advantages and disadvantages, and people are trying to trust those kind of things also. Now let's say you want to build a system. Basically, just this is where the point comes now. Now the internet, which actually has to remove or maybe eliminate the kinds of centralization and the kinds of a monopoly or kinds of the centralized kind of a system which has to create, that the drawback of that was not addressed, but instead there are some major players we are still holding a monopoly in the internet, and they're playing a major role to get the many things done, and they become like a major players in the internet, right? So this all the internet has been treated nowadays, making so much of the things with the use of the technologies, right? Now this is the one technology we need to see, that the way the internet use this internet as instead of centralized computing kind of a thing, can we use this as a decentralized kind of a thing, right? So when you want to, that means when I talk about a decentralized kind of a thing, now you have it directly the players. There's no in between any centralized guy, right? There's no any centralized system which comes into that. Everything is decentralized. Now the person who is actually trying to invest money, or maybe we're trying to travel, or maybe we're trying to sell, or maybe trying to get something out of it, or maybe something to buy, he is not going to maybe like I need to buy something from Amazon, or maybe the eBay, or maybe something some other party where e-commerce site where I need to book, and they will try to do that. Can I directly have the kind of a sending mechanisms or buying mechanisms directly from the seller, right? That's where you just think about like transacting the money and building a system where this decentralized party itself can come and they can try to do this. Just imagine that kind of a system, right? That's where the kinds of the decentralization has to come into the picture. That's why when we talk about the decentralization, the P2P computing is came into the existence, right? Now when you talk about the P2P computing, every peer or the person who is actually trying to put the thing, that becomes like, now you think about something like this one, that every person becomes like the kinds of a node in that, right? That's we see that how they become like a node kind of a thing that we'll see once we go into that, right? So when you talk about this kind of a party where which I gave an example, these parties you are not, as you don't have any centralized kind of a mechanism, now every party becomes like untrusted. Now how do I trust? Like I paid some kind of a thing to other party, but how do I trust the party? But in the case of a centralized kind of a system, I have one person, okay, everybody's trusting, let me also trust, because there's some kind of the authorization is given to that, so that at least I can identify one person is the trust, and later we can do kind of a thing. So that's where it happens for the kind of the centralized kind of a system. But when you want to remove this centralization, which internet has given for a major players, and they want to, or maybe it could be like a banking system, or it could be an insurance system, or it can be the e-commerce system, or it can be the internet where the people are trying to get. And if I want to go for this kind of a decentralization, and how do I trust the parties, right? That becomes like a major crux in the case of the technology invention just to happen for for internet to take it forward as a new generation technology, to trust someone else which you are never seen, right? That's untrusting parties. And whenever you talk about untrusting party, but there is some common interest to them, right? So I want to do some kind of a business, or I want to buy, or I want to travel, or I want to get some kind of data from them, or I want to do some kind of a business kind of a thing. So then they have common interest, right? Now you try to bring the people, those who are having common interest, but there are untrusted parties, right? So try to bring them so that you can create a permanent, unchangeable, and transparent record of exchange, right? This is the major problem, right? So what it happens is whenever you do this kind of a transaction, which that kind of a guy, which used to be like a transparent and unchangeable, right? It should be like a permanent record. So that means whenever any transaction is made, this cannot be mutable. It should be an immutable kind of a transaction. That means it cannot be changeable. It should be like a permanent. So when you make a kind of a record which is like a permanent and which is unchangeable and is a transparent to everybody who is in that network, then probably people try to trust each other, right? That means among the P2P, one has to create a kind of a system where each person can trust others. Then that becomes like a P2P trusted kind of a network, which you are trying to build from the untrusted parties, having the common interest among them without relying on the centralized authority, right? That's where actually blockchain comes into the picture. Okay, so I hope now you those who are very novice users to this, you could be able to understand the blockchain is basically a technology which is built on a P2P computing kind of a network without relying on a central authority, right? That's how it comes into the picture. Okay, so when you see about the evolution of this blockchain, so there is basically what we talk about is the general agreement, right? So this is like a consensus, and if you talk about those who are studied about the distributed computing, there is something called the how do you get an agreement, especially the protocols, other things when you want to see about the kinds of the distributed computing when you are trying to do any kind of a transaction, and it's like going to do in the kind of a distributed computing mechanisms. How do you understand that the agreements are the kinds of the transaction made is actually applied on all these kind of systems, right? So they should have a general agreement or consensus across all these kind of a system. Okay, and if you see about the kinds of the blockchain that given as a birth, like the way the email is an application of an internet, you should actually treat like the blockchain is like a type of the one technology which is given a birth, right? Like for example, the email is the internet has given a birth to the email. Email is an application of an internet. We need to think here like the Bitcoin or the other kind of the cryptocurrencies. For example, any cryptocurrency, if you talk about like a Bitcoin, those things are basically an applications of a blockchain, right? That's how we need to be looking into. And the technology behind Bitcoin and cryptocurrency or Ether, is one of the other Bitcoin, similar to the Bitcoin, the Ether is also they're all based on the blockchain kind of technologies. Okay, and we should treat like it is basically a blockchain is a technology where so many applications are getting developed and it's becoming a major player nowadays in the kinds of in the industry, right? So finally, when you talk about the kinds of a block, right? So when you talk about a block or kind of a thing, what it says that it's like the block what we see is no one wants, right? So like you can treat like a block is like a transaction or the record or maybe the trans which is made. And this is not owned by anybody else because this is a P2P kind of network. And if you see about, in fact, this kind of the blockchain, blockchain in fact came into the thing. If I'm not mistaken, there is some kind of a paper which is in fact published in October of 2008. He is basically his name is Satoshi Nakamoto. And he has designed a Bitcoin. He actually the design of the Bitcoin we actually brought into this P2P electronic cash system. So his idea is removing the centralized authority, central banking system, and coming out of this central banking system. And can we have a decentralized kind of authority and create our own kind of cryptocurrency so that the centralized authority kind of things can be removed, because trusting on the central authority also. Whether it is correct or not, how much it is to be trusted, that kind of a thing it came. And so he wanted to have a different types of a cryptocurrency kind of a thing, like say electronic cash system. It's not a payment system, it's a cash system, right? The electronic cash system here is a P2P kind of a based kind of network. And he published a paper in 2008, and it gave like most of the people started talking like Bitcoin. But in fact, this Bitcoin, the paper what is written and built the system, in fact, the Bitcoin system is the first, the first of its kind, the electronic P2P electronic cash system, which was built on the blockchain technology. And he named it as a Bitcoin, and people started using it, and they're also trying to promote buying the Bitcoin, and the governments are also trying to adopt these kind of technologies. But as it was told by many governments also, they say that the blockchain is a good technology, but not the Bitcoin. Okay, so Bitcoin they call like Bitcoin or cryptocurrency they call like an evil, right? So but the blockchain is good. Okay, so that's how the the things comes into the kind of a discussion. They say that the blockchain is a very good technology. It can be applied to many places, right? But if you apply kind of the cryptocurrency is going to create a decentralized kind of mechanisms, and though the transactions is like a that can be like a transparent and do that, but how it is can be trusted, and how that governments or maybe the central authorities are going to do, and who will take the ownership kind of a thing. Still, there is so much of the so much of things has to happen. But if we keep that either cryptocurrency aside or maybe the implementation of the things as a thing, but the blockchain technology can be applied to many of the applications, right? So you can name any application where you can apply the blockchain kind of a technology. Like it can be applied in many fields, like the way the digital transaction is being done, or maybe the computers, which I gave an example of doing it. And also like the people are also talking about something called smart contracts, where people would like to have a trusted contract system with the untrusted parties of using this P2P technology, where the smart contracts can be made, right? So when you talk about a smart contract, like for example, like there is a tenant and there is a owner, right? But among this tenant and owner can be build some kind of the blockchain based technology, so that this kind of the agreement which happens between the tenant and owner, it comes through like a digital kind of a transaction mode using this blockchain as a technology. That's a smart contracts, right? Not only that, smart contracts also been applied in many areas that we'll see in one of the slides, how this is the different types of thing that's going to take the smart contracts applied to them. And also government is also thinking of putting this blockchain technology, not as a Bitcoin, I'm talking about blockchain as a technology, for all these government land records or things need to be made like a blockchain based technology, so that the transaction which has been made goes on to the different kinds of systems, which is highly impossible for someone to change kind of records because of the way it has been built. So it's like a tamper-proof it becomes, so that all the records get into the kind of a blockchain. And also there is some kind of the idea also, these blockchain technology when it's being applied. So as the tamper-proof, there have been tamper-proof, and so that the currencies or things which is being done. So probably some kind of a linking also can be done with that, so that these things which has been happening can be reduced, right? So kind of the monetary things which happens also can be reduced. That's what's one of the things which the lab records or things also getting digitalized and getting into the blockchain kind of technologies. There are a few governments which already started up using the blockchain as a technology for even the land records also. And similarly, there is a agricultural reformation system also, where these blockchain technology is being applied, where as of now, like a small farmers or things can be joined, they can be made as a blockchain based group, and these people can own. Like in the case of thing, nobody owns any kind of a thing, right? So like for example, they say that you can become a owner, maybe 10 people, 20 people can become owner of one system, right? For example, if they want to have kind of the tractor to be operated, so probably this tractor which they're trying to, nobody owns it, but they can be operating together. Like whoever operates, probably kinds of the transactions can happen, and they can create a small group where people can trust in the digital transaction flows like this, right? That's how people are trying to see many applications which the blockchain can be applied with tamper-proof kind of a mechanisms, using this as a digital transactions to happen, and also some kind of the cash system also can be linked with this for the transactions, right? But nevertheless, the Satoshi Nakamoto paper, which has in fact given a enlightenment to the blockchain technology. The Bitcoin, in fact, it's the other way around. Bitcoin has given enlightenment to the blockchain technology. But otherwise, everybody was thinking about the Bitcoin. But Bitcoin is not exactly the blockchain, right? This is one of the applications, but it has given enlightenment to the blockchain technology. That's what we need to think about. And it's a good paper. So those, before you attend to the next classes, next lectures, next talks, so I personally suggest everybody to go through this paper. Okay, have a look at it and also see that how it is being worked out and what kind of things he has explained using this blockchain technology for implementing the Bitcoin framework. Okay. So now let's get into the understanding of this. Like which I told you, always I use this kind of an example, which is like a kitty party, right? So like usually to understand the blockchain in a much better way as an introduction thing. So let's assume that it's like a small kind of a kitty party, right? So kitty party is something where the group of the ladies, they join together and they go to some party. That day they carry some money and they put it in some kind of the bowl or maybe the pot. And after that they usually go for some kind of a chit chatting, but also they want to have some kind of a money which can be shared on the day. And they go and they put some kind of chitty, and they take the chitty, and after that they whoever get, they get the money, right? So that's how the kitty party has been centralized. So doing. But in the case of kitty party, if you see, there's no centralized person, right? If there are a group of women who are actually celebrating this kitty party, going to kitty party, everybody owns it, and everybody owns and everybody trusts each other. They're trusting each other. So there's no untrust. Like there are 10 people, there are 10 people of them trust each other. When they're putting some kind of the chitty also to who is going to get the money during that party. So what they do is they put a chitty, and after that they also take out thing, and they say that okay, this money is coming to them. Then that day they carry the money and they give it to the person who's already getting that that day thing. That's how the kitty party is being addressed, right? Just imagine the blockchain is similar to that, right? There's a technology where there's no centralized authority, and all the money which people try to see and get it, you can they work well, in fact, right? So that's where it comes into that. Okay, but if you see that one of the good thing about the thing is that you can trace back the event. That's called provenance, right? So provenance means you can trace the event back. Like whenever it's happened, some event is being happened, you can trace back and find out where exactly it happened, right? That's becomes like the provenance. So one of the good technology for one of the good thing which blockchain provides is the provenance. You can trace back and get when it's been happened and how it is being who has been done, kind of a thing. Also we're able to do that, right? So like government, many of these other agencies also try to say that it can be applied to the technologies and also many applications, but not to the cryptocurrencies. Or that's where it comes up. Okay, but as of now the thing is like that, we don't know in future what is going to happen, whether governments are really going to adopt this kind of a blockchain kind of a technologies, especially cryptocurrencies. Blockchain can be applied to many of the application areas, but whether the cryptocurrencies can be applied to the government agencies or things, as of now we don't know. But there are some governments of other countries are trying to adopt the cryptocurrencies. Okay, that's how the news have been coming up. But as of now, there is no any practical implementation of practical use of any government using the cryptocurrencies, which is like the digital cash flow systems. Instead of hard copies, making some kind of an RBA or something, where centralized kind of authority is there, that they're trying to remove and do that, but so far it's not done. Why people some people doesn't even trust printing the money and giving some central authorities? There is a small, they also think like a problem. Like whenever there is an inflation is happening, so the governments, what they try to do, they print they print some money as a hard copies, right? So like in the case of India, when you talk about RBA, which is going to print the money, so there are central authority, they actually print it, right? They print and distribute the money in the case of a hard copies, or maybe as a cash, right? So, but how much they're printing, whether this printing money is exactly is going to serve or something, we don't know exactly, right? Sometimes when the money is less, you can print and give, right? Now the cash has come into the into the public. Now they start spending, but it's going to create a lot of inflation also, right? If there is more money, if no production, no agricultural, and no kind of things are happening, then everybody has a lot of money, but you don't have money is there, but you don't have something to buy, even the food grains also, right? That's how it becomes like entire system collapses, right? Printing hard copies of money is also not always good. It's always better to have a limited kind of a thing and go for this kind of a the spending of the thing. So your spending should be less than at least maybe at par with what you can able to buy, right? You cannot spend something which above what you have, right? So that's where it has to take care of into the thing. Now that's what people say, that the blockchain as a thing can be applied, but when you apply for the cryptocurrencies, where this kind of the hard copies printing, the rupee note printing, or maybe the money printing can be eliminated, and can we apply this so that the entire cash flows like a kind of a digital mode, and nobody owns it, and everybody trusting this. And even if somebody is trying to put also, they also come to know that how this transaction is not correct or kind of a thing, right? That's how it's being done here. Now there are so many like applications which I told you. There are so many applications where it can be applied for agricultural, and where the new work for tractors. It is especially like people trying to go for an agricultural farming kind of a thing. So the way they operate tractors, other things, they can form a kind of a blockchain kind of a technology based for the agriculture, where Nobody owns it, but they can operate and they can also get some money when they give it to the people for for lending them and doing kind of things, right? And multiple farmers can own, and the smart contracts can happen among them, and agriculture land records to be becomes like a blockchain. This way is giving like a new kind of a technology for the thing, and many of the industries are working on this, making this especially the land records, not only the agriculture records, even that land records also can be like a blockchain made, so that it can be traversed back and where the kind of a thing has been taken care in a transaction also. Okay, and they're also linked with some kind of the GPS information, I mean to say not GPS, the coordinate information to that kind of a land record, so that it becomes like a spatial content. And even if somebody would like to make some kind of a transaction and kind of a land records, because this doesn't belongs to that kind of a people, so then the transaction says like invalid kind of a transaction, right? That's where it comes into the picture. Okay, and this is another applications of an IoT, basically, where the rural electricity, where like if you talk about the producing this kind of electricity using this the green energy kind of a things. Like for example, if you somebody wants to make some kind of solar energy, let's say, by putting the solar panels and do that, then they want to sell the energy which they have been doing it. It could be like a solar energy, or it could be anything, some the kind of a things which, let's say that they invest something on the solar panels and they try to produce the solar energy as electricity, and they want to sell this electricity to someone else who is actually in need, right? So, but right now, if you see again, there is a centralized authority where you have to sell it to the regulatory body, and these people will take and they sell and they try to pay some money. That means again it's going to centralized body. Whenever it goes centralized body, actually if you want to sell something to the end user, in between the centralized user, always it is like the amount what you pay is always more, right? So to take out this kind of a central authority as a side, now you try to build a distributed thing so that you can directly sell who are directly in need of it, right? So those that you can link all the households, other kind of a thing, and the amount also can come like kind of a digital currencies kind of a thing. So what you can do is people are in fact trying to export this kind of IoT based kind of a system where these solar panels or maybe the solar energies or green energy kind of a systems which have been connected over a network, and you produce the kind of the power electricity, and probably this can be sold directly to the household or whoever in need using this kind of a blockchain kind of a technology, so that in between there is no any kind of the central authority which comes into the picture, right? This is the IoT based one of the applications which people are trying to bring it up. Like this, there are so many in-need applications are also coming. Like there are so many applications where it can be applied in healthcare and education, and also in the voting kind of a system, and other kind of a system also, like a new other which people are trying to explore using this blockchain kind of a technologies, right? Okay, now as I said about the history and other things have been solved. Now, if you talk about the internet solved many problems, right? So like information communication problem, and even though but how do we? There are some more problems which need to be solved, right? What is that? Is like a fake news, right? So like somebody is putting a new. How do we know that it's going to be an authentic news or fake news? That nobody knows, right? Other one is the money, fake money as a real money, and intermediary, which I was actually explaining about, created far more. In fact, these intermediaries need to be. People thought when the internet and the internet became like a revolution, they thought that it is going to remove the problem of intermediary. But in fact, the internet has given so many intermediaries, created so many intermediaries. Instead of removing them, it made so many intermediates, right? Intermediaries become now more. Amazon, if you name, Google, Microsoft, Facebook, and most of these, if you see, the large content of the digital information is being managed by them, right? So they have become like a major players of operating this internet as a backbone network, right? Now, this the centralized kind of a computing, which internet, one of the features of the internet, or maybe one of the properties or one of the deliverables of the internet as the centralized kind of a computing, or some way of like a distributed kind of computing. Can we move the kind of a phenomena to the P2P computing, right? So that everybody becomes like a player, even though they are not trusting each other. They try to work on untrusted environment in the trusted way. This is the code one has to remember when you talk about a blockchain. But how do we build up? That there are some framework that we'll see, right? So that also you have some more talks, probably will understand them, right? So when you talk about the kind of a network which is like a P2P kind of a network where untrusted parties, but having a common interest, they come to some consensus and they try to build a system and they trust each other because of their common interest, though that's like untrusted kind of a scenario. and they try to perform kind of a transactions, right? So that's how the technology has to be seen when you want to build the blockchain applications based on that, right? Okay, and so the problem is, like always see that you always need to trust, right? Even the P2P network is something like honest to trust. Honest. You need to be honest to trust. That's remove the trust of intermediary and try to trust everybody and make a P2P network, and that entire economy becomes like a P2P economy. It's more like a centralized economy. Now it becomes like a P2P economy when you try to apply it for a digital kind of currencies or cryptocurrencies. Okay, fine. So now let's get into the kind of things, right? So one of the techniques which blockchain applies here is the ledger, right? So everybody understands about the ledger. Let me see whether I have a ledger. Okay, let me just talk about something on the ledger. So ledger is something when we see about ledger is basically a transaction where if you see in the olden days, we used to have a book, right? Okay, so in the book, people used to apply kind of ledger. Let me see whether I have some book like this, right? This is the ledger, right? So in the ledger, when you see about we have the transactions applied, something like left side and right side, like two columns are made. Even if you see about economics things, also we used to have some kind of accounting, right? With accounting, we used to maintain like the credit and debit. So how much it has come, how much has been debited. So like credit and debit, when you see, finally it should get matched, or maybe should be if you have done some kind of a money, finally when you see, you should match, right? That's how that accounting system is to apply. How assume this is going to be like kind of ledger, right? It's not a single ledger, it's a distributed ledger. But in the case of the normal kind of a scenario, when you talk about a centralized kind of a computing, these ledger books are used to be maintained at the central authority. Like if you go to a bank, earlier days, olden days, if you see where there's no internet-based systems are available, or maybe it is not like a digital bank, or maybe when the systems are not, the transactions are not like through digital, they used to have a ledger books, right? So in the ledger books, when you used to take a passbook, in the passbook there used to make one entry for you, saying that okay, this is the amount and this is the amount that you will deposited, or this is the amount that you have been withdrawn. They used to have one entry in the passbook and they used to have another entry in their ledger book. Okay, so that means you also have one copy, they also have a copy, right? This is things which used to happen, and they used to maintain all the ledgers which has been done is maintained in the centralized repository, and individual people used to have their own individual ledger in their own passbook. Now assume that this system now, this ledger which is being done as an accounting kind of a mechanism, now it is being moved or maybe to the thing like a digital kind of a transactions, where still the transactions whichever is happening happens in the digital mode, and the transaction entry is made into the database. Earlier the way it is used to made in the case of the book, the ledger book. Now the similar kind of a thing happens in the case of the distributed system. Is it right? Now, once it happens in the case of the database, each database now consists of a transaction. Again, these databases are maintained by the central banks, right? And they also provide some kind of the login other thing so that you can also log in and check that. But still, the owners are the centralized authority. That's how it actually becomes like the first slide. Every bank has their own systems like a client A, B, C, D, and there are multiple ledgers, but bank holds the one golden records. And client B must reconcile its own ledger, recognized of the bank, and must convince the bank of the trusted bank if discrepancies arise. If any discrepancy arise, sometimes if there is some money that has been transacted, is the transaction not made, so then probably you have to go and ask them why this kind of a transaction has been happened. Like for example, if you go to the ATM and withdraw money, let's assume that the money has not yet come, but it has been transacted, right? Now, though no money has been dispensed from the ATM. Now you say that no money has come dispensed, then you go and ask that the bank, you have to approach the bank and say that you have to show them that the slip saying that I withdrawn but no money has been dispensed. Now you just see that how it is being going to be done, right? That means they center that you are going and approaching the bank to do that. Then what they will do, they check in their cash system and see that whether 10,000 rupees what is being claimed has been available in that total repository. So if it is available, based on that they say that it's available, then they'll again revert it back the transaction, right? That's how the bank does it. Now that's where that ledger is being maintained. They have an account. Now you just think about something for distributed ledger where there's no centralized bank. Now everybody becomes like, if you have something like clients, now every client becomes a part of the system. That part of the system they call like a node, right? It's like a node. Now everybody which in the part of a system has a node. Like if you are doing some kind of a transactions with everybody, you become like a part of a node. Now those who are trying to make. Now just remove this kind of a bank which is actually removed. Now there's no central authority. Think like all these people as a peers, right? P2P kind of a computing. Now this P2P kind of a computing now becomes like the ledger, which becomes like the distributed ledger, right? There's no central authority. Now the question becomes like, but how do you trust? How do you make? That's the beauty of the blockchain technology, right? So that means whatever the record or whatever the transaction is going to make here, this becomes like one of the entry that becomes like a block, right? So now treat like each transaction that you're going to make is a block, and each block is associated with some kind of the security mechanisms, and that security mechanism is going to provide you the tamper-proof kind of a transaction, so that nobody can tamper it or nobody can able to do that. Do that. That is where it is applied. That block is actually becomes like this, right? How it is being built. Just now think about something like this. Every transaction, whenever they make, they have something called the previous block and the next block. That means the previous transaction, next block, transaction where this is being made is maintained some kind of the crypto kind of a mechanism, which is called as the hash value, right? That's what the hash becomes. So this hash value, whenever it generates, it is actually generated, and every hash which is maintained here comes from the previous block, right? Like for example, when you talk about this hash, whichever we are trying to get, this has some hash value, and whenever you have the hash value of this block is linked with this block, and the hash value of this block is linked with this block. That means every block has the hash value of the previous, and previous hash block is maintained within that, and the next hash, the hash of that block is maintained into the next block, right? That means they have a hash value, the previous block hash, and the one which is going to be a pointer to the next block. And if at all somebody has to tamper any kind of a thing, it becomes highly impossible for someone to tamper all these blocks and modify all the hash values, right? That's what the hash becomes like a major phenomena when you want to maintain this kind of a blockchain based kind of a technologies, right? So that means like you are passing some information. Let's assume that I pass some information to my next guy, and next guy is actually taking the information of it and is making his own information and passing to the next, right? But whenever the next information is passed, always the previous information as a hash value has kind of an identity is maintained within the block, so that even if somebody would like to tamper that kind of a transaction, it's highly impossible or nearly impossible for someone to do that kind of a transactions, right? That's how it becomes like. So wrap-up transaction as a block, similar to a page in a ledger book. Each block depends on the previous block, and any transaction a block would require recalculation of all the blocks, which is highly impossible, right? If somebody would like to monitor, let's say this transaction, then even if would like to update this kind of a transaction, this becomes like invalid, because it has to get a value of the previous. This hash value changes now, right? The hash value of this changes, and again when it is trying to put up here, the hash value of this is different than this, right? So that means it becomes like invalid block. So like this in the P2P network, what it can be trusted is whenever a block is written to the peer node, and this is maintained some kind of a hash value, with it becomes impossible for someone to even tamper it. Apart from this hash, when it is created also, it uses some kind of a cryptography algorithms, right? Let's assume that's going to be public key cryptography, where you have your own private key, and the next node also has their own private key and public key. You as a node also have your own private key and public key. Use this your own private key and public key to make kind of the secret key that you are the one which you are going to make, and you pass it on to that. And whenever somebody would like to do, they use their own public key to get that information which is available, right? That's how that the public key cryptography kind of things works out. That means whenever a block is created, this block is created securely using the hash and kinds of the cryptography kind of algorithm, which can be based on the public key cryptography. That's how it becomes more secured. In the case of even untrusted parties also are going to operate it. Normally uses the distributed ledger with the consensus system and public key, private key kind of cryptography algorithm, right? I think hopefully you will learn all these mechanisms, like how it's being created in the subsequent talks, right? So now this is actually the workflow, how it actually works. Like a blockchain as a thing, when you talk about each block, how it works, like users initiate a transaction and using their own digital signatures. Oh, sorry, I think this is like a flow which goes into that. I just explained you this, like how do they, like they initiate the transaction, right? And they validate the transaction and change the block, right? So then how do they initiate? The initiation happens with the digital signatures and the private public key. And there is some proof of work, which is going to be a major things in that, where the transaction is getting validated. and the chain of the block. These are the three major parts when you talk about a block, right? Each block consists of three entities. One is the initiation, other one is the validation, other one is the chaining block, right? So this chaining block consists of the hash function, and this hash function is linked with the next block. That's how it happens, right? Okay, but one of the problem which is being dealt within the, which always been talked about, is the double spending problem. This is how do we eliminate it, right? In the case of a central authority, this double spending may not come, right? So that means you have a transaction which is made, they actually maintain a centralized authority, so they know that how much money you have spent and how much money you've been retained, right? That's the thing comes. But in the case of the P2P network kind of a blockchain technology, the double spending problem is a big problem. This needs to be addressed, right? And this is how it is being addressed. Is like a double spending, if you see, is a digital cash scheme in which the scheme single digital token, that means some kind of a monetary or money, can be spent more than once, right? Like for example, let's say that I have 10 rupees. Now I say that I do the transaction to two people, saying that I'll send some money to here and also some money to there, right? At the same time, let's say. But if I go to the bank and say that, okay, this 10 rupees, I have 10 rupees, but you deposit here and you deposit here also. What it happens is, usually at any point of time, there is only one transaction. That's what we call like an atom. When you talk about the RC properties, atomicity, consistency, isolation, and durability, right? That's every transaction happens. Then it happens in an isolated way, and also the atomicity, each is rolled back till the other one will not happen, right? So similarly here also, when you talk about in the case of a digital, but if the two transactions are happening at a time, and that is a P2P network, but how do you avoid this kind of a double spending problem, right? So this double spending problem is being resolved. Is also one of the using this kind of a the algorithms in which the same single digital token can be spent more than once. As with counterfeit money, such as double spending leads to inflation by creating a new money, copied currency, and there's different types of algorithm to overcome this kind of a double spending problems, right? This addresses blockchain kind of a things. They have double spending problem can be addressed, right? Probably that you would say as in detail how this can be done. Now, there are, as I told, there are so many applications like which I told you about, like basically the blockchain. Whenever you talk about a block, it consists of a cryptography and proof of work, and for the validation and decentralized network. So these are the three things which one has to keep in mind whenever we are talking about the things, right? So let's see that as a overview. Let's see that this is a new block, right? Already this is the chain of blocks which is available, and this block of chain, and whenever you are creating a new block, so this new block is getting added to the existing the chain, right? Okay, so new chain is getting added to the existing block, and this, whenever this block is created, so this block in fact has three entities, right? So one is the hash function, which is going to be the major part, which will be linked with another one. Then the proof of work, which is actually the digital content transaction which is being made. Then going to be the hash function, which is maintained as a part of the block, right? So that's how it becomes like added to the chain. Now each transaction is a subsequent change for all the transactions which has been made. Okay, so this is like how the simplified block structure looks like. So we have different types of blocks, and all these things are maintained, and there is a proof of work, which is hash function which is being done, and there is a hash tree which is being created to do that. Okay, fine. So as I told you, there is a four key concepts of a blockchain. So one is that distributed shared ledger, other one is the cryptography mechanisms which is applied for the security, and there is a the agreements, the consensus, which is everybody is agreed upon kind, and there is going to be the smart contracts, right? So this is the four key concepts of a blockchain, where the smart contracts, like in fact one of the application people trying to build using this blockchain, the smart contracts are built using all these kind of technologies, right? So let's okay, let me, because the lack of the time, I just want to show you some of the applications which which has been done here. Let me have some more slides. Okay, now there are some tools which these things are built, right? Like the blockchain has given a birth to many technologies, many applications, like the way the internet has given a birth to many technologies like email, Facebook, WhatsApp, kind of a thing. The blockchain also is given the technology, birth to many of these technologies, like a smart contracts. It could be like a digital currency, a cryptocurrency, or it can be kinds of the security mechanism which is going to apply for different kinds of fields, right? And one of these frameworks, people are trying to put like a different frameworks they are trying to get and build the applications using this blockchain technology. One of the framework and one of the technology which is used is called Hyperledger, and there is another one, Ethereum. Ethereum is also one more thing. Just see, I have Ethereum also. Okay, there is something called Ethereum. Okay, so Ethereum is also like one of the framework, and both of them has both advantages and disadvantages. Like when you talk about the Ethereum kind of a thing, let me just see whether I have some slide which talks about the Ethereum. Let me see. I think I should have one slide which talks about the difference. Okay. Yeah. So this is basically like there are two famous frameworks as of now. One is called the Hyperledger, other one is Ethereum. So there are so many applications which have been built on both of them, and I'm going to show you one of the cloud-based application development using this the frameworks. So the Hyperledger and Ethereum are the frameworks which people are trying to use as a frameworks to build the kinds of blockchain mechanisms to do that, right? So one is that Ethereum is built on the B2C, the business to customer kind of application, generalized applications, and Hyperledger is for the business to business, like a B2B kind of a things, right? So each would like to do the business by building their own private network of the blockchain, right? And Ethereum is like a more well-versed for the business to customer kind of a thing. And in this case of Hyperledger, the confidential transactions is transparent. That's the private and the kinds of public networks, algorithms is no mining is required. There's so many things, right? And there is a the Solidity is one of the programming languages which based on the JavaScript kind of a thing where Ethereum uses, right? So that's, and here chain code is another language which is being used by the Hyperledger. Okay, they have the Solidity, and this is it is like a no built-in cryptocurrency, but built-in cryptocurrency also called, it's called Ether, right? That means whenever people are trying to use this Ethereum, so there is a kind of a cryptocurrency which is attached to this is an Ether, right? The transaction happens in the case of an Ether. That's a digital currency which happens. But Hyperledger, you don't have any cryptocurrency which is attached to this. Okay, that's where the things comes up. Now to just have the thing. Let's say that if you would like to build a system, right? So let's say that if somebody would like to understand how to build, can I use any kind of this blockchain mechanisms as a cloud and quickly build a system, and so that I could able to see the screen of my Amazon cloud. Can anybody respond?
Yes, sir. It's visible, sir.
Visible, right? So I'm going to show you how this Amazon has brought up this blockchain mechanisms for development of the applications, right? So I'm just giving a small introduction of this so that it becomes like complete for someone to develop applications from the beginning. Okay, so this I'm going to Amazon now. So this is an Amazon EC2, Amazon Web Services, Elastic Compute Cloud, and Amazon has hosted the blockchain mechanisms, and they have already this Amazon as a under the umbrella of Amazon managed blockchain. This is the service, cloud service which comes from the Amazon, and using this you can create your own network, right? So I think they're using the framework, if I'm not wrong, I think Hyperledger they already hosted. Hyperledger is already there as a network. Ethereum is not it. It's not hosted. I'll show you also. We have another 5 minutes. Is it okay?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. You can continue, sir.
Okay, another 5 minutes. I'll be closing the session. Just after giving a small demo of it. Okay, so let's see that how blockchain how they're giving. So AWS has Amazon managed blockchain. They call like AMB. This is a fully managed blockchain service that makes it easy to create and manage the networks. Open source Hyperledger Fabric, right? So and Ethereum frameworks both are hosted. I think, but the one which I'm using is on the Hyperledger. And as of now, I'm not hosted on any kind of Ethereum frameworks, right? Of the things, right? So now let's say that what is the kinds of things which is Hyperledger using this I can create. So one is that I need to create a network. The open source is a blockchain framework. Then I need to invite others, those who want to be part of my B2B computing network. And I can add the nodes, create and configure the nodes, and deploy the applications, right? So that it becomes easy for doing it. So I request everybody, you can have a look at it as a cloud service rather than setting up and building up, so that you can quickly build your own blockchain-based application for your different types of interests and start working on them directly onto that. Okay, and there are many other open source frameworks where you can also set up and do that. But using a cloud service is always good for going for a deployment kind of things, right? So like if I would like to build any kind of a geospatial blockchain application, I would like to prefer go for using as a cloud services to do that. Okay, so let me just see that create a network. And here if you see, in fact, this network right now is available only in some of the data centers of a cloud, right? So even in India, though they have a Pacific Mumbai, though there is a cloud data center of the Mumbai in India, but this the blockchain is not yet hosted on the in the Mumbai, right? So now whenever I do this, so I need to pay the money in the dollars, right? Singapore dollars, maybe 5. So there are some places where, as of now, these frameworks are available in the US East and the Pacific Asia, then the Singapore, then the Tokyo, Ireland, and London. Not hardly only, I think 4, 5, 3, 4, 5, 6. Only 6 places only as of now. There is a blockchain network has been hosted on the as a service from the Amazon, right? So maybe similar to that, there are other things also they are hosted, but they're also going for a similar kind of mechanisms. Now what I'll do is, but if you see here, as of now, the Ethereum is not yet operational also. They're coming soon. They will not yet fully made functional. Okay, so then once it comes, probably it can be people, those who are actually having ethers can link some kind of a cryptocurrency also to do that for building any kind of applications. So now I'm going to the starter kit. So I just take up the starter kit. I'm just going to do, and I can create my own network. And there is some pricing policy also, right? So you can also check what is the okay. Let's say that if it is the pricing policy, if somebody would like to do, how much money has to be paid for the kind of a thing. Let's say that I want to check some kind of a pricing. So probably I have my network which I created. So probably I'm paying something like $0.34 per hour, right? So that is the membership thing which I have to do if I create, and it's only on demand. It's not charged. Whenever you use it, only it will be used, right? So for a data node, something like this, whenever I write a data, something like this, and pricing examples like a 2-member test network, how much it may come, and if I'm going to join for a production network, how much I'm going to pay per hour, right? Even if I have a production kind of a network, obviously I'll take something like $2 per hour. So $2 will be somewhere around, if you convert into Singapore dollar, somewhere around 45 rupees, so 90 rupees per hour. So this is the payment which I have to do, okay? But if this framework has been hosted in India, obviously the price may come down. But right now I'm using the Singapore, so I have to pay more. Okay, let's see now. I'm just going to create a small network here of my own network. I say that demo, then something I give like okay, my own blockchains. I give like hyper ledger 1, right? Okay, now I just create my own. How much voting policy, approval methods, and proposal duration. Let's say I just want to specify how long proposals are open for voting in 1 hour. No, maybe the things. I just say that. Let me just decrease this so that I could be able to. Okay, so I can create name for organization, like purpose of maybe let's say JNPU demo. Okay. User create an admin. So one thing like yeah, admin password. I can have my own password created to that. Then I can have this logging information in our certificate authority logs, right? Just refresh this. Specify an string that define the password for the fabric. The admin password must be at least 8 characters long and must contain at least 1 uppercase. Okay. Okay, that's where I could able to create. Now this is built on things. Now I can go and create. I can create a network and add my own number to that, right? Okay. Fine. So the details are created. Now I can invite the other members also to be part of the kinds of the network. Fine. So I think it will take some more time for to understand. I hope maybe you can have some more sessions like now this is my thing which is created for the GNTU demo, and I can actually add the members. And whenever I add the members, they also get each node, and so that whenever the transaction happens on the back end of this, all these blocks can be created and transactions can happen. This takes like some more time, so I'll just stop it here so that you have a similar kind of demos and other things are down the line, so that you'll understand them all of them better. Okay. So right, so I just do this. Let me just give a conclusion. Now the thing is that in fact, if you see the blockchain can disrupt the technology the way email and internet has created a revolution in the digital communication. And there are several applications are being developed using blockchain, and the technology is moving beyond the next generation. The way of dealing with the secure, trust, immutable transactions makes major crux of the blockchain technology. Okay, so try to go through all the sessions and have an understanding of it. And I hope there are some demos. All things are also planned. Some hands-on sessions are also planned. And let's get all hands-on on them and try to do some interesting things using the blockchain technology in a secured way, so that the decentralization becomes much and more matured, and for operating different types of problems which probably we have to overcome, and develop different types of applications which is on untrusted decentralized mechanisms, P2P networks. Okay, thanks everybody, and thanks listening my talk. Can we, yeah, any other questions or anything? Probably can put it across.
Participants, if you want to talk to Raghavendra sir, you can unmute yourself and you can ask questions.
Sir, chat box is one question is there, sir.
Yeah.
Can we see the blocks there is, sir?
Sir, your voice is breaking. Can you repeat?
Sir, there is a question in the chat box. Can we see blocks there, sir? A question asked from K. Anil Kumar Reddy.
Okay.
Yes.
Under the Amazon.com that you showed, can we see the blocks? He was asking that.
Yeah, you can see the blocks. You can see all the blocks.
Can you please demonstrate that?
It takes some more time, so probably we may ask, because I think time is limited now, so probably to add some more things and take some more time to do that.
Okay.
Okay. Fine. We have.
So can you tell me what is the prerequisite required to develop applications in Ethereum or Hyperledger for any student?
You mean to say that the networking side or the programming side?
Both.
Yeah, so the Ethereum uses that programming which is like similar to that Solidity. Okay, one has to get on that. So then similarly the Open Fabric also uses the other programming language. So they need to understand about the JavaScript, especially one would like to do the programming on Ethereum, similar to the JavaScript. Okay, that's the one thing. And the other one is like nowadays you get like for learning perspective, there are Docker-based containers are available, already built-in Docker scripts, right? So you can actually put it like a Docker, either Windows-based or maybe the Linux-based, and frameworks will come along with that. And go through the literatures of the Solidity and try to see how do they build this kind of the consensus and do that. That probably you will understand better. I think you also have one session on that. So once you go through that, you'll understand to do that. Okay.
And for Hyperledger, sir?
Yeah, Hyperledger also, like as I told you, the Hyperledger also uses the programming which is actually written in chain code, written in Golang. It's called the Golang.
Okay, Golang.
Golang. Okay, so they use something called chain code, and for building these applications of blockchain. Okay.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Okay, so okay, thank you everybody. I hope I'll stop the session here, and I wish you all good luck, and organizations I wish you all good luck, and try to have some hands-on sessions so that all the doubts that you are asking will get clarified at your subsequent sessions.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. On behalf of Shababindu Madam, I thank Raghavendra sir for sparing such time and giving such very good introductory session related to blockchain and related concepts. I hope participants has gained much introductory concepts of blockchain technology. Thank you so much, sir, for being with us, and hope for our contribution and our collaboration
Yeah.
will continue for the next sessions also.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you.
Sir, attendance links